Hello and welcome to the All the Pies YouTube channel. My name's Kev, that's Davy, and we're here to discuss both the Champions League game on Tuesday where Newcastle drew 0-0, and there's going to be a build-up to this weekend's game on Sunday afternoon against Sheffield United. So let's get into it.
God, he scored so many goals.
All right, Davy.
I'm in, yeah. Been all over the shop this week, but yeah.
Well, I want to find out about that before we get stuck into anything. I do want to approach an elephant that seems to be surrounding in my room. Now, you're being very kind about this, but I'm seeing it the other way. Yeah, I am a bit of a Cotton Eye Joe for the next video or two.
Billy Bob.
Yeah, I was at the dentist the other day, and the good news is I'm getting closer to getting my front teeth back, so I don't have to look like a hillbilly.
All I want for Christmas.
My name is Kevin. I'm a farmer, and I've been growing turnips about 20 years. But yeah, it means
I've got a banjo. Will I play my banjo?
Well, you get the banjo. I'll get the washboard out like that, and we'll make it bad. But yeah, I go back on Thursday, so it just means between now and Thursday, I've got to look like this. So there we are. Elephant in the room approached. Feel free to comment below any ridicule. I'll take it on the chin. I'll take it in the mouth, pun intended.
No, you didn't want to take it in the mouth and lose any more.
True.
I honestly didn't notice till you mentioned.
That's very kind.
I think it was the angle you were like that, and I didn't notice.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I thought, can I just do the podcast like that? Would that be too strange? How are you, Davey? Anyways, busy week, I'm guessing, with the new edition.
Went down to see the band on Wednesday, left really early in the morning, and then back late. I had to go to Liverpool, so went there Wednesday night. Watched the Leeds game with me, my stepdaughter's partner. He's a Leeds fan, and it was weird because the sound went off. So watching that, it was bizarre. And then had to go to a music shop in Liverpool and then back again, and had to call into York on the way. But I haven't travelled as far as most Newcastle fans this week. But we're back down tonight to see the Burn again, and back again tomorrow night. I was hoping to go to the Sheffield United game. It was one I had earmarked, obviously with it being a bit closer on that. But how shall I put this? Me biological dad died a few weeks back, and he lived in Australia, and it's his memorial thing on Sunday. So I can't really miss that. And I've got an opportunity of possibly meeting family members that I've never met before. But that's a long story. We didn't want to be going on about that. So I'm hoping that I'm just going to tell them. I'm just going to come and say, look, I'm here, but I'm definitely going about 4 o'clock because I'm watching the match. So lovely to see you all, but I am watching the match. I'm not missing it. So yeah.
Well, condolences on that, Davey. I wasn't aware of that.
So, it's all right.
But yeah, I'm watching it at our lass's dad's. He's a Forest fan. People who've watched the channel for a while know I've got a little soft spot for Forest for that reason.
Yeah.
I do like to see them do well because it means he's happy, and means we can watch the football together. So we're going to watch that. But yeah, we've got a lot to unpack the day, Davey. So
yeah,
we'll get into it as usual. Are you ready?
Oh, possibly.
Are you sure you're ready?
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Okay, let's go.
I keep looking at different things on that, and the lad Spadder, I look at him and look at his reactions.
It doesn't get old. In fact, it gets better.
I know.
You see it. There's a full-on documentary about that situation. That's all I'm going to say, and it's worth every minute of watching because it's just comical.
No, brilliant.
So, Davey, we'll start off with Tuesday night. So Tuesday night was a massive night for every single Newcastle fan, whether you were in this country, whether you were out in Milan. I'm sure everybody's seen the amounts of videos going around there. It looked like an absolutely belter time. Newcastle United came away with a draw, 0-0. Now, on the surface of it, you look at that and you go, thank you very much. I'll take a point from the first Champions League game away from home at the San Siro. 20 years since we've done that. We've got a point. A lot of people saying, get the point, get them back to the home. However, we're going to scratch a little bit deeper, a little bit more below the surface. I think to see where Road will look a bit, I think that would be a fair analysis. What I'll do is I'll get some stats on, and you just give me what you thought about the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? Stats say one thing, and then it's like the qualitative and quantitative evidence, you put the two together. So, like, you know, you read stats and you watch the match, and you can see for yourself what happened. I think the first thing I noticed was before the match itself, when they were lined up, and you had some players like Longstaff who you can read into it one way or another, but he was kind of ultra focused, shall I say. Now, was that nerves? I don't know. Was he just like pumped up focus, thinking, I've got to give 110% here? And then stood a couple away from him as Murphy, who was he looked more excited than the ball boys and ball girls and that, you know. He looked like a Ben who was he'd been dragged on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? He was so excited, and I thought, yeah, you know, it's the two juxtapositions that you know that it shows what it all means and everything like that to everybody, you know. But
well,
I thought we started really, really well, and I think the first almost 15 minutes, I thought we looked the better side, and I thought, oh, if this is how it's going to go, this is going to be cracking, you know. And then there was something that happened. There was a missed pass, I think. I'm not blaming him, but there was a missed pass back by Gordon, and it gave them an opportunity to come at with, and that seemed to be the pattern from then on. Really, whether it gave them confidence, but yeah, it was an interesting game to watch. It was tactically very, very interesting. I think for the neutral, it might not have been a great game to watch, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and there were some great performances.
Yeah, I mean, I had me heart in my mouth a lot of the time. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, looking at what we've got on the screen here, totally ties in what you said. You know, that you look at the first 15 minutes here, and we were certainly bringing the game to them. I remember that moment, but the misplaced pass, and it did open the door. I mean, for me, you mentioned, Murphy, and he did, like, you know, I saw him, and I don't mind that. He was taking it all in. He was excited. I want players to be
no, it was
excited.
great.
I want them to take it in. I don't think his performance was terrible. But as we got into the game, I think he got it right with the addition of Murphy on there, because he added a little bit more defensively. I think that kind of was the plan. Now, if you look on the shot map comparison here as well, it kind of tells the story, and it doesn't really give like an incorrect impression. If you look, they had 25 shots, as we all know, to our 6. And the ones in the dark red are the ones that they got on target. And our one on target was right at the end of the game with Sean Longstaff, which pulled out a good save. But yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like we could have done a little bit more with the ball when we had the ball. I felt like we were a little bit not scared. Scared's not the word. Precautious, shall we say? When we did get the ball, in terms of moving it forward and committing the men forward. There was a couple of times, especially when Almiron came on the pitch, where they did break down the right-hand side somewhat. And it seemed like the men were a bit further back. They were a little bit scared to push forward because they didn't want to get hit on the break, which I guess is fair enough, because, you know, we had Maxi 2.0, which was Liao for them, who I thought looked really dangerous and was a thorn in my side throughout the game. If it wasn't for his sort of poor decision making in and around the box, you know, he had a couple of times where he probably should have passed, and the back heel. It could have been a different story. But who were some of the sort of standout performances for both sides for you?
Well, for me, I thought the best player on the pitch for both sides was Tomori, their defender. I thought he was the difference. they just did not look troubled at all, and they were all quick. And I thought Hernandez was really good, both defensively and coming forward. And Murphy had his work cut out, and even when Almiron came on, he couldn't get into the game very much because of Hernandez, really. I thought Loftus-Cheek had a really good game for them. I knew, he's a good player. He's good on the ball, and he cuts inside. He looks for passes, 1-2s, and that. He's strong. Liao, if he had kind of, I think his like choice of, I don't know what he was doing when he tried to backheel it and he fell on his arse and he looked stupid. And I just thought, my God, why didn't he should have just shot. They should have been a goal up then. I thought Giroud was dangerous. He got into dangerous positions, but it didn't quite fall for him. And Krunic was very good, and like in the center of their midfield, like passing things around, and a lot came through him. Chukwueze was good coming forward as well. I think they were the standout players for them, but it could have been far, far worse had our defense not been superb. I thought they were brilliant. I thought Trippier was outstanding, and Shea was excellent. And they had players coming running inside and coming running from deep, and when they had the ball, they looked really good. And they had a lot of players who, especially when it came out to Hernandez, they had players who moved forward into the gap between the midfield and our defense. And that was a huge gap at times because we played a little deeper than we would normally do, I think. But Longstaff and Tonali and Bruno was deeper than he would normally be as well. But I think, people are saying Tonali didn't have a great game, but they stopped a lot of things coming through into that gap. And the problem with what and Pope was brilliant as well. The amount of shots they had, and he just looked commanding. And I was really pleased for him because he's looked a little bit nervous. He's looked a little bit unsure with a few things this season. But that was a game where his class really showed. He made some really excellent saves. His position was excellent, and I think that made it easier for him in a way. The problem was, when we got the ball, they don't kind of fall back into a formation or anything like that, and they don't press the way that other teams press. But what they do is the man mark. They immediately pick up a man, so every one of their players knew who they were on. So it was almost impossible to get a really good talent pass to anybody moving forward, and we had to try and play it into space for players to run onto, and players kind of coming from the middle out. And even throw-ins, it was difficult to get the ball to anybody on throw-ins every little occasion. And when Tonali got it, everybody else was marked. And I think unfortunately, some of the passes that were put forward into space were put maybe a little bit too deep, a little bit too strong. And as I say, Tomori was brilliant, and their fullbacks covered everything as well. And then the keeper was there as a sweeper. It was really difficult to play against the way that they played. And it's dangerous when teams do man mark, because if you get somebody who doesn't do it, or one of our players who gets away from them, it falls apart. But I think that side of their game was superb, and it made it so difficult for us. And some of the fans are saying, "Oh, we didn't play well, and it was boring, and this one didn't do that, and that one didn't do the other." Isak was knackered by the end of the game because he ran and ran and ran and ran. I think he should have maybe come off about 10 minutes earlier than he did, and had fresher legs on.
Well, that's the thing, Davy. I think at that moment in time, like I think Eddie Howe wasn't quite sure whether to stick or twist, and kind of played both of those cards when he played. It's not always he plays Isaac and
Yeah.
Wilson on the same pitch. And when he made that move to move Isaac onto the left hand side and play Wilson up front, I was kind of getting was it West Ham or Everton when he did that jink and run. He tried that a couple of
Yeah.
times,
They were
but
just on him straight away.
yeah, in Tamori, you rightly mentioned him. He he was all over Callum Wilson at that stage because he's a powerful centre back. And by the way, Gareth Southgate, I know you watches this podcast regularly, but if he doesn't pick Tamori over Harry Maguire, then
For tips from us.
I don't know what he's thinking about. But I want to give a special mention to Sean Longstaff. Now I know you missed that chance at the end, but I think he his first ever Champions League game up against what was a really difficult team in a really hostile environment as well. I thought he sort of did that thing where he kind of goes under the radar, but doesn't make any really bad mistakes.
Yeah.
And the couple of times, especially within the first 15 minutes when we did have a little bit of a go at the beginning, I found he found himself in some really decent positions.
Yeah. I wish he scored when he got through. He did get a shove, but it wasn't enough to get a penalty. And I wish he just stayed on his feet and shot. That could have changed the game, But
I think he'll be looking. Yeah, he'll be looking back at that, and I think he'll probably take the learning away from that. And had he a time machine, I think that's what he would have done. I think he felt the arm on the back, but just you're not going to get a penalty for that.
I think if that had been in the Premier League, he might have got a penalty. I think
it would have came down to the referee's decision. It's having not given the penalty, it's never going to get overturned. Had the penalty been given, they might have looked and went, actually, well, there is a little bit of an arm there, but for me, it's not a blundering error. And like you say, there was opportunity there to get the shot away. One thing I did notice, I don't know if anybody else picked up on this. So when, their right back, the captain, what's his name again?
He went off, didn't he? So I kind of think my mind's blank.
Yeah, but anyways, when he got booked for dissent,
he went off it, didn't he?
So yeah, he was going off it, right? And so he got booked for dissent, and he was continuing to shout at the referee.
Yeah,
I don't know if you picked up on this, but Tonali went over to him and ushered him away as if to say, "Come on, you're going to get yourself sent off." Now I spoke to Sai about this during the match, and I was like, what was he doing there? Was he looking after his mate? Was it instinct because he's used to doing that when he's playing for them? But I thought to myself, just let him go. He wants to get himself sent off.
I said the same. I said just leave him, and if he wants to keep going, just keep going, and whatever. Yeah, it was a strange one, but
whether that was sentiment or whether that was force of habit, I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
bit of both, maybe. Yeah.
All in all, it's for the first Champions League game. I think anybody who says they wouldn't have taken a point beforehand probably needs to reassess, because
I would have done. Yeah,
it's a really good point. It's a really
it shows the quality of the teams that we're going to be playing against, really, and where we need to. I still don't think we're playing as well as we did last season. We're still sort of finding our way, but. Yeah, it's one of those, and I said exactly what you said. I put a thing on Twitter. I said, "Do we stick or twist?" And we actually went for it a little bit more towards the end. And I tell you who I think deserves a shout out as well. When he came on, I thought Anderson was superb. He was absolutely superb. You would think he'd played in the Champions League for years and years and years. The way that he put himself about, he put him. He went in for tackles. If he didn't get the initial one, he went and ran with the player, prevented them getting crosses and passes in. He got blocks. On the ball, when he actually got the ball and won the ball, he was so calm. His little turns into space, rather than just hoofing it and then it coming straight back. I just thought he looked a really mature player in that situation. Because you could be rabbit in the headlights, coming on thinking, bloody hell, I'm a Newcastle fan and I'm just a young lad and I'm coming on in the San Siro, blah, blah, blah. He was the opposite. He just looked class. He looked really measured and assured and confident in what he was doing. And not overconfident, but he just looked really, really good. And I think he definitely deserves a shout out, you know. But
Speaking of
overall, I
tackles,
think it was a decent performance. But the defense was superb. I thought they were excellent.
yeah, I mean, speaking of tackles, if there was an award for tackle of the season, possibly tackle of the decade, Kieran Trippier's sliding tackle
Oh,
and then stopping the ball from going out of play. I mean, it was poetry in
yeah,
motion. I've
yeah,
seen
it
the
was
slow
brilliant.
motion of it, and it was just, I mean, it had to be timed well, and it
Yeah,
was. And I mean, he showed he's. I mean, we always talk about Kieran Trippier and what he can bring offensively
yeah,
on the right hand side, getting crosses in, linking up with the right sided midfielder, whoever that may be. But you know, when you see stuff like that, you just realize how good of a defender he is as well. And the resilience the whole defense showed, I think, was epitomized by that one tackle.
yeah,
Also, Bruno did a tackle as well towards the end, and it was good to see because I haven't seen Bruno do this in a while, where he does the old
yeah.
yes after a tackle, and I
He
thought
looked
myself,
really up for it.
that's the
Yeah,
passion, that's the Bruno I want to
yeah,
see,
exactly,
that's what I want to
exactly.
see because when you had that sort of passion last season, that's when you were playing your best football.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I think there's a lot of positives we can take away from the game, a lot of positives, and
yeah.
hopefully we can take that in to this weekend.
I just
Where
want to
the
say
Premier League, yeah, go on.
there was a little thing I wanted to mention. It was just something I noticed. I was chuckling away. It was like it was one of the best names for a footballer when he came on for them. Sporty Yellow. I just thought that what a great name for a sportsman, Sporty Yellow. But there you
Sporty
go.
Yellow playing alongside
That's the
Julio
5, 6
Jodio.
year old and me chuckling away when he come on. But there you go.
Sporty Yellow. I'm getting that on the back of a top, me. Oh, Sporty Yellow. Put the ball over the net. Yeah, so like I say, that brings me nicely into this weekend, the return of the Premier League for Newcastle United. We have what on paper looks like a favourable match. We've got away fixture at Sheffield United, which is a 4:30 kickoff on Sunday, and
Chalk and cheese, really, isn't it?
it
From
is,
Tuesday
yeah,
night. Yeah.
it is,
Now,
yeah. So
I've been
I
having a
mean,
look at them. And they're very, very organized defensively, and the kind of stifle teams and try and get things on the break. They play the long ball, which a lot of teams coming up, you expect that. But one thing to mention is I think they're going to struggle purely because their player, who for ages has been their major outlet, McBurney, got sent off in the last game right at the end, so he's going to be missing. And Archer, I think, is the guy who plays up front with him. But then Osula is another player that they've got. He's a Danish player and he hasn't played very often, but he's apparently a doubt. I think he's got a knock. And I don't know if they're going to play. There's a little winger called Traore, whether they play him up front and try and look for his pace, or there's a big 6'3", 20-year-old who I don't think has actually played, like started for them, called Jebison. I think he's a possible shoe-in for, not possible shoe-in, that's the opposite, isn't it? But I think he might come in for McBurney.
well, I mean,
But I think they're struggling up front, so they're going to really look for to just try and stop us from playing. That's it's like the opposite of the other night, you know. Oh, you've got it up there, have you?
yeah, well, I mean, they've got a lot of issues. I think we've got a bit of a connection problem going on. 2 seconds. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me? Hello?
Right. Okay. Must be. Yeah. I think we're back. So yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of problems going on, especially with injuries. So he has just a little look at some of their injury problems. So these are players that are out and won't be featuring. Well, most of them into October at least. So You've got Max Lowe, who's got an ankle injury. Ben Osborne's got a groin. John Fleck, he's got a calf injury. Ryan Brewster, he's got a thigh injury, as does Reese Norrington Davies. George Baldock, he's got a calf injury. John Egan, he's got a knee injury. Ollie McBurney suspended, and Daniel Jefferson is ill. So none of
he's ill,
those will
so
be
he's not even
featuring
going
within
to.
the squad.
Right.
So
Right,
yeah,
so-
so I mean, they've got one or two issues, I would say. So I mean, look, it's a case. I mean, let's have a look at the head-to-heads. I mean, it's generally a really generous. If we look in the Premier League era and look at some of the head-to-heads that
Yeah.
we've had previously, so there's a few games that stand out, and this one actually for different reasons. So sort of taking it back from the recent Premier League era up here on the 5th of December 2019, we beat them 2-0. That was a Maxi header, his first ever goal for Newcastle United. That was.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Shelvey scored that famous goal where it was a knock-on from Andy Carroll, and everybody stopped. And he continued, and he put the ball in. It looked like he was going to get boot for time wasting. They checked the VAR, and he was onside.
But I remember that being a tough game. It was a tough game. They battled and fought, and I think that's Sheffield United have been like that for the last few years, really. You know, they haven't got the players to come out and play attractive football, and it's like that old Burnley style, as I would say, you know, like in the modern era where you fight and look to play the long ball to the big striker. They haven't got the big striker, and that it's gonna really affect them. So I think that as I say, I thought Jefferson might play, but if he's ill, then he's not on. Asula, I heard, was a doubt. So, you know, I'm not worried about that. I think regardless of who they play, they'll play a similar style. But I did wonder about McAteer as well, because he came off quite early in the second half against Spurs, and Norwood came on, and I've got a feeling he might start with Norwood, but Hamer, the midfielder who's on their right hand side, he's the player that seems to make things tick for them. They've only scored, is it 4 goals they've scored, but he's got 2 of them from midfield.
Yeah, so I mean, well, I've got the head-to-heads here. So, well, I mean, the head-to-heads, the current form. So,
Yeah.
a couple of other these ones before we move on to that, I wanted to point out
Yeah.
this will be the first time we've played them in a full stadium since that 2-0 win. Because the 3-0 win that you can see on here was at St James's Park. If you remember rightly, it was in an empty stadium during COVID. One of the first ones.
Were they already down then?
No, not that one. The second one they were. So this one here,
right,
the 1-0 where they beat us 1-0.
That's right.
That was when Fraser got. So that was in an empty stadium down there as well. Fraser got sent off in that game.
Yeah.
If you remember, it was a Fernandez handball, and Billy Shaw put the penalty in, wasn't it? He went to VAR, and it was a bit contentious in today's rules. Really, his arm was out a little bit. I'm not sure if it'd be given with today's handball rules.
Yeah.
But this 1-0 here, that this wasn't in an empty stadium, but it may as well have been. If you remember, I think it was the very first game where they started letting fans in, and everybody had to sit with like 3 seats gap in between each other. I think it was only like 2,000 or 3,000 that were in the ground. Joe Willock header on that day.
Yeah,
so,
I was there. I was one of the few that was there. Yeah.
And
it was great to be back.
It was great to be back. And if we look at their current form, now there's a lot of red on there, but I don't think it tells the entire story of what's happening with them. So you were talking about the goals. So they got beat 1-0 off Crystal Palace with an Edward header. They made a good account of themselves, and they made a good account of themselves in pretty much all of these games here. So the one that stands out for me as well is the Man City game. So there was a stage where it was 1-1. I remember Haaland missed a bunch of chances in that particular game. Again, they made a good account of themselves. The Sheffield United versus Everton game that finished 2-2 was a really good game. Archer picked up, and that one, if you remember, was the one that came off the post and hit Pickford in the back of the head on that game.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I did
see.
chuckle at that. Yeah.
Yeah, and again the Spurs game as well. You know what I mean? Into the 98th minute, they were winning that game.
Oh, I know.
They were winning.
They're not
game,
a pushover. I don't think there's any easy games. They're going to make it difficult, and this is a game where, you know, our passing from the midfield and coming out towards the forward three hasn't been as great as you would like it to have been thus far, really, apart from in the first game against Villa, you know, where most players were right on it. And I think this is a one where we're going to have to be really on the ball, you know, because if we give the ball away, they're going to look to counter attack really quickly. They're going to have to change their style. You know, they probably will play the long ball. But it's whether they try and go with pace. I think they've got no choice because of the players that are available. So, yeah, I mean, they play three at the back, and it's like five across the middle, but it really ends up becoming five at the back and 5-3-2. So I don't know whether he might change that. Because of who's available, he might change it. I'm not certain. But yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for us to try and get some confidence going forward. You know, I think I'm expecting we to have a number of chances, and we just hope that we put them away. I think the first goal is key. I think if we get an early goal, they're gonna leave gaps. They're gonna have to open up and come out, and yeah, it's one of those. They're not games that I enjoy watching all the time, you know, because you expect to win, but you know it's going to be difficult. I can't hear you, Kev.
Myself on mute by mistake. Sorry about that.
All right.
You can hear us now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the formation you were talking about there. So yeah, like you see, it's technically three at the back, but the likes of Bogle and Thomas sort of pulling back a little bit to give that extra protection in the defense.
Yeah.
Now, like you mentioned before, I think this guy here, Hamer, he's really
Yeah.
going to be one of the ones that we're going to have to keep an eye on because he
Yeah.
seems like a player. Am I right in saying it's his debut Premier League season?
I
And
think
he
so,
seems
yeah.
to have slotted into the league. Yeah, he seems to have slotted in really nicely. Got a couple of goals as well. And Archer, you know what I mean? He knows where the back of the net is. Archer as well. You
Yeah.
can't sleep on him. All of that having been said, I do fully expect we're to come away with 3 points at the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have it all our way, but I think there's going to be times in the game where we really are going to be on top, and it's going to be about how clinical we are with our chances. Now,
I think it's going to be a real battle. It's going to be a real battle for everybody. You know, they're going to have to fight for every ball because they will.
They will, yeah, and it's not an easy place to travel to, Sheffield. Sheffield United, they've got a good support. The fans do make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They get behind the team. But then again, you know, what better preparation for something like that than a trip to the San Siro? Now, what I'm hoping is that there's a bit of a buzz carrying over from that.
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested in, sort of moving away from the Sheffield type of things, is with the cup game coming up now. At first, I thought myself, he might rest a few players, but then I thought myself, well, actually, no, if he's going to rest players, it's probably going to be the cup game against Manchester City. So I'm interested to know on what your starting 11 would be for this game.
I did think that, and I think he'll start Pope in the same back four. I think it'll be Trippier, Shea, Botman, and Burn. I think he'll go with them because I think he'll give Hall and possibly Livramento start on next week against Man City. So I think he'll keep the same back four because it is going to be a battle and they've got to be on it. You know, depending on if anybody's got knocks or whatever from, I haven't heard anything about that. So hopefully everybody's okay. I think Longstaff's going to be key. He's going to be key, his work rate. But I've got a feeling that for this type of game, in the way that he played when he came on, I think he might play Anderson, and Bruno in the middle, and then possibly play Tonali on against Man City, because he had a knock, remember, so he wasn't 100%, I don't think, for Tuesday night, but we'll see what happens. But I think he'll play Wilson tomorrow, and I just, it doesn't really matter like who he picks between the two, but I've just got a feeling that Wilson will, he'll hold the ball up and fight a lot more, bring people in. I think it's that type of centre forward is more suited to this kind of game, and I've got a feeling he'll play Almiron, and I've got a sneaking feeling he might play Barnes, and possibly rest Gordon. But again, it's like what you're saying. It's like, will he play Barnes against Man City? Start him? I've just got a feeling he might go with Barnes in this one.
Well, mine's got a couple of changes to yours. So I went for the same back five as you have, Pope, and I think he will play Burn. He was probably the one out of the back four. I was probably wondering, will he play him? Won't he play him? But might he give Lewis Hall a little look against Sheffield United? But the more I thought about it, I thought, we do need these 3 points.
Yeah.
If we want to keep up with the teams at the top half of the table, Sheffield United's a game where you've got to be picking up those points.
Yeah.
And I think you trust Dan Burn, and you'll see this is quite an important game. So I did stick with Dan Burn.
Yeah.
In the middle, I think he's definitely playing Bruno Guimaraes. I think he's playing Longstaff. And I think he will go with Tonali. I'm not sure if he will go with Anderson, to be honest. I think he'll probably go with them 3 in the middle for the reasons that I've just given for Dan Burn as well.
Yeah.
I do think Harvey Barnes will start. I think he'll start on the left-hand side. And I think he'll switch Gordon to the right-hand side again. I think he'll play them too. And Isaac Wilson, flip a coin, isn't it?
I know, but they're both brilliant, so I'm happy whoever starts,
I think he might go with Wilson just because he's been a little bit more clinical in front of goal. And I think the type of game it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a battle. And I think that probably suits Wilson a little bit more. He's a bit stronger. He'll get in amongst the defenders. He'll do a bit of shoving and pushing. And I think that will suit that game a little bit more. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Isak, comes on for similar reasons.
The thing is Isak's been playing more like I expected him to. When I mentioned, when I wrote about it before the start of the season, he's been coming deeper. He's more of like a false 9 with the wingers coming in, linking up the play and things like that. That could work. That kind of play could work because it could draw their centre halves out. And, it's harder to pick somebody up when they're playing that false 9 role. It's like, do they just leave him in the gap, or do they have one of the two going with them? The fact is it's not a 2. The chances are they'll play a 3. So if he does that and he plays that false 9 role, they've got 3 players covering the defence. So if the centre half comes and tries to cover him coming deep, that leaves huge gaps for either Barnes, Almiron, Gordon, or whoever is going to play to come in. And he might think about that as a tactic, rather than Wilson kind of man on man with I think it's Amadozic, isn't it? The one who plays in the centre. But yeah, Eddie Howe will know which way he wants it to go, and he can change it as well. Obviously, I don't expect either of them to stay on for the full 90 minutes. And it's always a good option to bring one of them on later on. hopefully not looking for to chase for a goal, but for to hold it up and, you know, things like that. It's an interesting one. I've gone for Anderson over Tonali because it's like one of these, it's as close as you can get to a Sunday league morning match sort of thing, you know what I mean? Where it's they really fight and kind of get stuck in and that sort of thing. And I think Anderson's just slightly more suited to that. But Tonali, I'm not saying Tonali couldn't play in that role and play in that type of game. You know, but and his class might show even more in this kind of thing. But I don't know. It's one of those. I think Longstaff definitely and Bruno definitely, but
I mean, I agree what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Is in Sheffield United, you would definitely want it to become one of those types of matches where it is
exactly.
like a Sunday league battle. Now, do we fall into that and take that sort of game to them? Whereas if you've got a Tonali on the pitch, you can see, right, well, okay, you might want to turn it into one of those sort of games. But we're going to use the sort of the skill in the class of our players to bypass that and actually pass it around using a different way. And sometimes when you do that, you can start picking up free kicks, start winning free kicks in the middle, and then they start going, oh, hang on a second, we're getting a little bit outclassed here. So it's a bit of a stick or twist situation. I think we've got the players capable of having that type of game, of having that type of sort of battling game. But is this a game, you know, when you look at other teams who are probably in the top half, I'm thinking of like maybe it's an Aston Villa or, you know, someone like a Liverpool. Like, if they go to those sort of grounds, they don't want to get sort of sucked into that. But then again, they haven't got the players for that. So you could well be right, and it'll be interesting to see what Eddie Howe is thinking, because, you know, we all know that's the type of game they're going to want. They're going to want it to be a battle. They want it to be, you know, going in. So I think we've got a couple of options, and no matter how the game turns, I mean, I think it would be a good idea to start with Tonali, and if it isn't working, and we're going, hang on, actually we have been pulled into this scrap, and haven't got the players for this. We have got the likes of Anderson to come off the bench when that scrap's getting really heated, and when the legs are going around about the 60th minute, bringing somebody like Anderson on and saying, well, no, hang on, we're continuing this scrap now. They might be a little bit like, oh, actually, we're on the losing end of this. So there's a ton of different ways that the match can go, and it's going to be really intriguing.
I agree. That's why it's not certain how Eddie Howe will play it, and I think you're right in saying that, you know, we should probably take the game to them and try and dictate the type of game there is. The thing is in these types of games against these types of teams, there will be moments within it where it does become that kind of Sunday league sort of clash, you know. And I think Anderson's got the class to be able to do both. I'm not certain whether Tonali has got that kind of battling side to his play that maybe Joelinton would have been more suited to this kind of thing, you know. But Eddie Howe knows what he wants to do. He'll have been thinking about this, and he'll know who's up for it and what kind of way he wants to play. And I think the key is the passing from the midfield and linking up. The 1-2s, the little triangles that I've always talked about, that we did a lot of in the first game, and we've not quite done it since. You know, for various reasons, and it'd be interesting how Sheffield United play against us. Will they try and go for that man marking sort of thing within their midfield? And it's just interesting playing against. We probably will end up playing against the three at the back, and I think that plays into our hands.
Yeah, you know, especially with the pace of Gordon. I think
exactly.
Gordon's pace is going to be really important, and the reason I think they might go for Harvey Barnes on the left-hand side, this is a type of game where I think you will get a bit of success of that one move he does really brilliantly when he sort of runs down the left-hand side and then cuts back in, tries to get into the box. I think that could be a really important move for him.
Yeah.
So all in all, it's shaping up to be quite an interesting encounter.
One,
yeah. Like I say, on paper, it looks like one you should beat, but there's a lot more when you scratch beneath the surface, which brings us on nicely to with score predictions. Now, when I got a little bit excited before the last one, and I went with 3-2. And I think you said, Davey, watch it end up being 0-0 now.
Yeah.
So you not in your own prediction, but in my prediction, you got it spot on.
Yeah. Well, we both said they could cancel each other out. You know, it was a very tactical game. It was. I love watching games like that. You know, I know some people just want loads of action and goals and things like that, but those types of games are really interesting. You know, and you can see who plays in certain ways. You know, and how
Game
the
of
tactics
chess.
go. Exactly. Yeah. This one, as we've said, is total chalk and cheese. But I've got a feeling I think they're going to really struggle to score because McBurney's not there, and the option of Jefferson is obviously not going to be there, and I think they're going to struggle to actually get anything, and I think they'll be looking to try and get a point against us. I don't think they'll score, and I'm hoping I'm going to go 2-0 to us. But I've got a feeling we're going to come right out early doors and really try and batter them early doors. And then I kind of see them having a game plan for coming at us, and that'll leave more gaps open. And I think our defense and the players that we think will play will stop them from creating anything if they need to score. That's how I see it. And I think we'll nick another one. It could end up being a massive win, or it's just difficult. It's making that breakthrough against this side that is going to be fighting for their lives from the word go, really, you know. So
who's your scorers?
Well, it depends on who's playing it. I was thinking through the week, I've got a feeling Bruno's due a goal. I've got a feeling Bruno's due a goal, and I reckon Longstaff might score as well. I think the goals might come from getting the ball in the box with the pace and things like that. But then because they're going to be kind of, it could end up being jumping all over the place and whatever. The fact that they both kind of try and get into the box, especially Longstaff, I've just got a feeling he's going to nick one, and I think Bruno's going to get in and get one. You know, the way that he kind of gambled into the space from the free kick, and he nearly scored with a header last weekend. It's that kind of thing, you know. I've just got a feeling that the goals are going to come from our midfield, purely because the forwards, unless they manage to get in one-on-one, I don't think they're going to have many opportunities, and it's going to be sheer numbers coming into the box for the second ball as it comes out. That's how I think it's going to go. But what do I know?
Well, I still am flip-flopping between two scores. I agree with you. We've got 2 clean sheets on the bounce now. I think the defense are getting used to getting clean sheets, and that'll be their thing for this game. Don't concede, make it difficult for them to score. So I think it'll be a 0, and I couldn't choose 2-0 or 3-0. You went 2-0, I'll go 3.
Right.
I'll go 3-0. After everything I've said in this video, it's going to be close and whatnot. I'm getting excited again. So I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go for a goal also for Longstaff. I feel like the last game he was getting himself in some good positions.
Yeah.
I fancy him getting on the score sheet. I'll go for a goal for Gordon, and one of either or who starts between Wilson and Isaac. If it's Wilson starting, I'll go for him. If it's Isaac starting, I'll go for him. So that's my score prediction on there.
Hopefully we're right, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll probably be back on Tuesday. I'll still have no teeth, but get your score predictions down in the comments. Get your piss taking comments and my teeth down in the in the comments as well. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Why not give it a little like as well? And like I say, any comments we'll always reply to. We'll having a bit of interaction. We'll be back with a review / preview of the cup game as well. Monday, Tuesday, sometime before the next game. I'll still be toothless. But we'll wrap it up there. Until the next time, Davy.
Yeah.
Come on.
Away.